Malibu, California, and the seasons have changed, and the sun is out and it's blue, and it's like heaven on earth. I want to talk about Bible prophecy, and I want to talk about how to live supernaturally in the last days. Now, I believe that we are living in what the Apostle Paul categorized as the last days. And of course, that began with the disciples, and it continues on to our era or our generation. And I don't want to get into a theological discussion as to the signs of the times being something that have always happened or they're unique to our time. I personally believe that the signs of the times are like the labor signs of a woman about to give birth. And that's kind of the parable that Jesus Christ used in Matthew chapter 24 when he talked about the signs of the times. And he talked about wars and rumors of wars and earthquakes and pestilences and famines and tsunamis and freak weather and all kinds of stuff. So on one hand, I think it's very important to have a solid grasp of the reality that those things are intensifying and accelerating. There was just recently a massive earthquake in Mexico, and when you look at the seismic charts all across the world, you see an increasing frequency and intensity and prediction for earthquakes along the Pacific coastal regions and all around the world. Now, these are alarming signs because earthquakes produce tsunamis, and tsunamis produce flood and devastation and so forth. But I want to also talk about the fact that you as an individual, and me, Paul McGuire, whether you know me or not, you were called for such a time as this. I was called for such a time as this. God chose you. Of any time frame in human history, God decided to choose you to live for such a time as this. And so you were preordained to live in this time zone, if you will, with all its challenges as well as its opportunities. Now, I want to talk about the opportunities for a moment. First of all, I believe that God has a commitment to his people. Therefore, God has a commitment to supernaturally supply your needs so that you can not only live, but so that you can fulfill the assignments or missions that God has given you. Now, I want to break down this word mission for a moment because a lot of people are suffering from the misunderstanding that a mission from God somehow only means being in the religious sphere of activity, like being a missionary or a minister or an evangelist or a preacher or a Bible teacher, which is fine. I mean, you know, I'm an internationally known Bible teacher who specializes in Bible prophecy. That's one of the things that God has called me to do. But you see, the calling of a Bible teacher or an evangelist is not more spiritual or more superior than God's call to be a businessman or an entrepreneur or an artist or a writer or a filmmaker or a communicator or a mother or an educator or a teacher or a truck driver or whatever. Because you see, life is not some big giant cherry pie with slices, and each slice says spiritual or non-spiritual. You see, in the kingdom of God, every activity is spiritual if you're walking in that moment-by-moment personal relationship with Jesus Christ. See, everything's spiritual. Therefore, if you're a screenplay writer, even if you're writing what would, quote, be perceived as a secular screenplay, what you're doing is every bit as spiritual as, quote, a minister. In fact, it may be more spiritual than a minister, because the contents, however subtle, of your screenplay have the capacity of communicating a worldview to millions of people around planet Earth. So I want to talk about, how do you find out what your gifts are, both naturally and spiritually, and then how you can make those gifts work, how you can experience breakthrough to the extent that there are obstacles that are inhibiting the full release of your potential as a individual who's been given gifts and talents. You need the power to break through to do what God has called you to do. Now, please don't misunderstand that as some kind of new age or merely psychological, motivational speech, because it's not. It's not that I have a problem with being motivated. It's just that positive motivation can't get you through life. We all die. We don't know when that will be, but you can be as positively motivated as you possibly want to, but you're not going to resurrect from the death based on positive motivation. Therefore, there's got to be a power that transcends psychological inertia, and that power, for example, would be the resurrection power of Jesus Christ. The same power that resurrected Christ from the dead ultimately is the same power that will enable you to be everything that you were created to be. And in order for that to happen, you have to be intelligent, you have to be educated, you have to understand what's going on. That's why I produced my 3 DVD series called Are You Ready? Are you ready for the coming one world government, the coming one world economic system, and the one world religion? And it gives you a macro look at what's going on in our world. And I'm going to give you one illustrative point. You see, if you're a businessman or you're trying to start a company or an entrepreneur or whatever, it's essential that you understand that you are opposing economic forces in this nation, sadly, that are organized, and the goal, the game plan, is to devalue the wealth of the middle class and transfer that wealth to third world nations. Not that it's going to help people, it won't. It will end up in the hands of very, very powerful banking families. But you see, if you are ignorant of that economic dynamic, then you can struggle real hard. But if your currency, for example, is being devalued by 50%, that's like going out here in the Pacific Ocean and trying to swim against a tsunami. So you got to understand those forces. I'm Paul McGuire. The website is paulmcguire.org. We're talking about breakthrough.